Hello and welcome back to St. Charles Patriot Radio. I'm your host, Missouri State Representative Richard West, proudly serving District 102 in the great county of St. Charles County. So today I have with me a northern neighbor and a good friend of mine, by the way, Representative Wendy Hausman. She represents District 65. I'll let her explain her district a little bit, but we're going to introduce Wendy and get her to tell her a little bit about herself and a little bit about what she's done in the past. And then we'll also later on in the show get into her legislation and what legislation she's carrying, and we'll wrap up with things that are kind of happening in the state. So, Wendy, thanks for coming in today. Appreciate
thanks for having me, Rich. I appreciate it.
So, as you know, this show is all about St. Charles.
Love that.
And you, having lived in St. Charles for a while and had worked in St. Charles, and now you represent some of the midsection of St. Charles. Mm-hmm. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I've been in St. Charles County for, a little over 20 some years. And I have 5 kids that I've raised. Oh my gosh. All 5 of them there. Man, I seem really boring whenever I think about what do I do. No, I have been very active in our community, and I had a business. I was a former business owner and did a lot of marketing for other companies in St. Charles County, and just got to know the community that I absolutely love. And so I wanted to represent them, and got to know many of you all who were already in the legislature. And so you kind of showed me the ropes and got me involved in this. And so here we are.
Well, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about why in the heck would you want to get involved in this mess?
Well, it's something I've always wanted to do. I actually went to college and studied political science, minored in pre-law, always wanted to get it somehow in politics. But I'm from the communist state of Illinois. So
explains a lot.
Yes, it does. And so I moved over here and fell in love with St. Charles County and got to know my representative very well, Nick Schroer. And then whenever he decided to run for Senate, he said, "Hey, Wendy, why don't you come aboard and, run yourself?" And so he was a big encourager. And so I support him. He supports me. And that's how I got involved in all
that. That is funny because I'll tell you, Senator Schroer, who is my senator, by the way, seems to have a lot of influence on a lot of us.
He does. That's good, though.
He's actually a really good guy. He started the legislature shortly before I did, and I actually served with him in the House for a little bit, and he helped to kind of guide. You come into this business, the political business, and you come to this great capital that we have, and you're just like, I am so lost. I don't know what to do, where to go. Where do I even start? But it's good to have mentors like Senator Schroer, and we now have Senator Smelting. Before we had Senator Onder, and we also had Senator Eigel. So we had some good people come before us, and we learn from their successes and their mistakes. But a lot of people come to Jeff City to try to represent the people that we live with and we live around.
That was what I wanted to do. I wanted to come and I wanted to represent children and families, and I wanted to make Missouri a great place for families to live and stay and, want to raise their families. And so that's my goal, and that's kind of been, my whole purpose of being here.
Well, good. So, I'm finishing up my 6th year here. You finished up your 4th
year. It goes quick, doesn't it? I say it does, and it does.
So where is your district? Why don't you give us the boundaries of your district and tell us a little bit? I know you encompass some St. Peters.
I do. So, I live in St. Peters, but I also have a little bit of the college in Cottleville, and then I have a little bit of O'Fallon. I like to claim O'Fallon. O'Fallon's a good city. And I also have Portage de Sioux and West Alton, which are, more northern areas in our county. And I've gotten to know some of the people there, and it's been a great experience getting to know them.
It's sparsely populated, there's so much history up there, especially when you get up Portage de Sioux up there. You touch your homeland of Illinois.
Yes.
You come right up to Illinois.
Absolutely,
there.
Right. I'm separated by a river where I grew up.
Do you represent the airport?
I do. Yes, that is me.
So you've got a big old long river. You got an airport, all in St. Charles.
All the duck clubs.
Believe me, I get a lot of calls about the duck clubs.
I do too. I love the duck clubs.
Is there any, we'll talk later about your proposed legislation, but is there anything that the state or that we do that is kind of touching the everyday lives of people in St. Charles County?
There's a lot of things that we do up here that affect the St. Charles County area. we were talking about, how the income tax, that we're getting ready to, eliminate. And I was just talking to some people about this earlier today. We're going to give it to the people. And I feel good about that it's not, we're going to write the policy, but then the people are actually going to get to decide if that's what they want. And so it's not just all about us. And I really, really like that idea.
Yeah, it's been an interesting year so far. We've got some heavy ticket items out there, which we'll talk on a little bit later when we get into some of the policy. But, St. Charles County is an extremely fast growing area of the state. We now boast more population than St. Louis City itself, in fast growing areas and areas where a lot of people we have a lot of transient population, I'd like to say. People moving here from other areas of the metropolitan area and from other areas of the state. Our school districts grow quick. Our business districts grow quick. Our cities grow quick. And then part of that happening creates spread, the spread of population throughout our county. And all of that, St. Louis City, I kind of grew up in St. Louis City and spent a lot of time in St. Louis County. And during my time growing up, St. Louis County was kind of going through the same thing. Yeah,
the expansion.
Yeah. So there's a lot to be learned.
There is.
We've had the same things happen before. So, and what's wild is what I'm working on in my district may not be the same as what you're working on in your district. Right. And I say this every show, and I truly believe it, that St. Charles County has some of the best representation.
I think we do.
We've got some of the most diverse people.
None of us all agree.
Yeah.
We really don't. Yeah. We all have our different ideas, and, we kind of go by what our constituents are telling us. And I think that's really says something about who we are.
Yeah, I think that's St. Charles County residents and our constituents should be happy to know that there's a lot of things we disagree on, but there's a lot of things we do agree on. Right. And, we're constantly working to better the lives of people in St. Charles County and the state of Missouri. School issues differ from Orchard Farms. You have Orchard Farms?
I do have Orchard Farms, yes.
Differ greatly from Orchard Farms to St. Charles City to
Wentzville.
Wentzville's
just growing like crazy.
And then we've got down in my neck of the woods, we've got Francis Hall, and let's not forget, we got one left there.
Fort Zumwalt, my kids, my school district.
Yeah, so I mean, each one of those have their own growing. I remember when my children were in Fort Zumwalt, and they had them in the trailers.
Oh yeah,
and that was such a big deal. Was
that at North or South?
Was it West?
Oh,
it was West.
Oh, but that's when West had it.
Yeah,
okay.
But
we've all had them.
Yeah,
because they grow so fast.
They grow so fast. The school districts can't keep up. And just about the time they get it all fixed, the population either stops due to growth stoppage, or they actually, like in St. Charles City, actually started to sort of draw back a little bit.
Yes.
So then you have a whole nother set of problems to deal with. And wow, a lot to talk about. So Wendy, let's talk about some of the issues with O'Fallon this year. The last couple of years, we've been dealing with the police training center.
Yes.
Have you been keeping up on that?
I have. I know that I was talking to the mayor just last night, and he said that the track. What is that? What is that called? EVA track is going to be done here shortly. And so I'm like, I want to ride on it. So he said, yes, you can have a ride on that. And I believe the shooting range is getting almost complete, and they're getting ready to start the building. So regardless of if the state gives them money or not, they're doing and moving quite quickly.
Yeah. So I too spoke with Mayor Hennessy last night from O'Fallon, and the mayor was very excited about the fact that they're getting close to completing their evac track, which is the vehicle training track. It's a mile oval track for training police officers on driving techniques and safety techniques. And they're just about done with that. And they're having the steel for the buildings delivered. So they're going to be finishing that up. So that's just another big project in St. Charles County.
The state's given them the money. It's just the governor hasn't released it yet.
Well, so
we're hoping that gets released.
Let's be clear on the state's giving them some money.
That is true.
I will say this was a shovel-ready project.
And the cities have done so much to get this completed.
Yeah. So, I mean, I believe St. Charles City and O'Fallon all chipped in money, and to create this police training program that's going to reach out to all through Missouri. Yeah,
as well as throughout other states.
I was going to say, Western Illinois and other states, and we'll be bringing officers here from other states to train.
Right.
It was a great project put together by St. Charles County and funded. Some of the funding came from the state. I think, what do we...
$4 million?
4 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. About $4 million. Somebody's on the budget. Wendy, tell us you're on the budget.
Not anymore.
Oh, not anymore.
I'm not on the budget anymore, Rich.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
You
took me off to be on government efficiency.
You were critical in obtaining some of this funding, though. Yeah. I mean, we worked with yourself and through Representative Hinman, who hopefully I might have Dave on next week, Representative Hinman on next week, because he is in O'Fallon is probably, I'm going to say probably the largest city in St. Charles County. They're just almost right at 100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, and Dave represents the majority of O'Fallon.
Yes. Former Representative Christopher Finelli also did a lot to that money. He worked really hard, I know.
And that's the other thing I'm going to bring up here is term limits. Okay. We the state enjoys 8-year term limits for representatives. It's four sessions, 4 2-year sessions, 4 2-year terms. And during that period of time, we really have to get ramped up quick.
We do. You have to learn quickly.
Yeah. And then just about the time you're learning what to do,
I tell you,
you become a lame fish, a lame duck. I'll be a lame duck next year, 2 years left, and
that's crazy.
To tie up all my loose ends. It comes quick.
Yeah.
So how has that affected you, knowing that you have term limits?
At first I was just like, well, I'm just going to do my job. I'm just going to learn this. And, I didn't feel the pressure. But then, man, the second year you start feeling that pressure. And you're like, where am I going to go? What am I going to do next? I just thought I'd ride the boat. And that's not how you do it. You have to figure out what you want to do. I mean, even legislation. If you start on your legislation in January, you will not get anything accomplished. And they don't tell you that your freshman year.
No,
you have to work on it all year. And I've learned that. And so, that's been valuable. But again, this is my 4th year, and I feel like I'm just now starting to figure it out.
Yeah, you better have that legislation prepared by the 1st of December and start dropping it. So you can get in the House, it's not as important as in the Senate to get your space in line, but you need to get that in so that it can get working through the process, because they spend December and the 1st of January trying to place those into proper committees.
Right.
Which is a whole feat in itself. But term limits definitely put a little time crunch on what you decide to do. Most legislation, if you present it's new legislation, you present it takes 6-8 years.
It does. Good legislation.
Yeah.
Honestly, right. I mean, we don't want it to be easy to pass this stuff. We want it to be hard. That's why there's a reason for this. Yeah. And everyone always asks me, why can't you guys get some good stuff done? Well, we do. It just takes a long time.
Yeah,
it's important.
It does. Well, it's got to go through the process.
Absolutely.
And then you got to make it better. Then you have a whole new set of eyes come in 2 years later, and you have all new guys that are coming in that might have insight on a different aspect you weren't even thinking of. So things are always moving around.
Absolutely. And you get different ideas. And so, I think the process is good. It's sometimes frustrating, but in the same sense, I think it's worth, good stuff is worth taking time to get.
All right. Well, look, this is Representative Richard West. I have with me Representative Wendy Hausman. We are going to, when we come back from break, we are going to dig into some legislation that Representative Hausman is presenting this year, and we'll get into some detail and find out some cool things. We'll see you right after break. Welcome back to St. Charles Patriot Radio. I'm your host, Missouri State Representative Richard West. I have with me today Representative Wendy Hausman from District 65, just a little north of me there. Wendy, we talked a little bit about yourself, and, I like to talk with folks about a little bit what we do up here in the legislature, because everybody either looks at us like a bunch of schmucks, or sometimes they look at us with stars in their eyes. We are just normal people.
We are
having normal jobs. We just decided to put our necks out on the line and come up and serve the people where we live. When I did this, I didn't come up here for much of a reason other than it's just a civic duty.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, I spent my whole life doing other civic things. This is just part of my civic duty.
I agree.
So we are nothing special. No. We come home on the weekends and
crash.
Yeah, crash, right? Or get stuck in snowstorms.
That's true. Yeah. Which was kind of nice.
Well, one thing we didn't talk about last segment was, what committees are you on this year?
I'm on a few committees. I am the chair of government efficiency, which is been really interesting. Yes. I've enjoyed it a lot. I like working on other people's legislation and trying to get things across. On children and family, I'm on emerging issues, joint committee on government accountability, which is, I haven't gotten quite into that one yet, but legislative review and professional registration and licensing.
Oh, you're a busy person.
I am very busy.
So I'll tell you, being a chair of a committee, everybody always thinks is a glorious thing. I don't know that glorious is the word. It's busy.
It is so busy.
A lot of responsibility.
Yes. I'm enjoying it. I love getting all the legislation, and then you got to get to decide what we're going to do. And we just had one for the safety inspections to eliminate the safety inspections. And I had a lot of people in my district who were really wanting to get rid of that. They're like, this is a great, opportunity for us to do this. I think they tried it last year and it didn't make it quite through. I've kind of gotten 6 or 7 people lined up with the same exact bill and language, so we can hopefully get that through and get that passed. So
that's an interesting bill because it's always kind of here. I hear different variations of it from different years to different mileages to different requirements for this and the such. I've done a deep dive personally on this, but I don't want to go too deep in this. This is not what it's about. I think that would be a piece of good legislation to address this year. I too am on your committee for government government efficiency, yes. And I enjoy that one too. It's not quite the Doge.
No, but we're not all the way there yet. We're just starting.
We're just starting.
We're just starting. There. We've got some stuff right around the corner that's coming up, and got some people upset.
Yeah,
and I think that means that's what that committee is for, is to start conversation. So that's the main thing.
There's so many things that happen at the state level that folks back home I didn't know about.
Right,
I'll tell you, until you get up here and start putting your nose in things, there's just so much that goes on.
Well, and how many times have you flipping through Facebook and you see they've got another bill that they're trying to pass and you're like, that bill's going nowhere. Like, the bill sponsor or, it's not going anywhere. But sometimes people just file bills to be filing them and to kind of make people talk and start conversations, which I think is good.
Sure. It's always good to have conversation. And, just to bring edification to our constituents, what better way to make people aware than to file a bill and to have people on the radio start talking about it, and then people in the community start talking about it, even though you and I both know, because we're here and we know that those bills won't go anywhere. No. People start talking. Who knows? Maybe 4 or 5 years down the road, those changes might take place.
That's true.
Just because you started the conversation.
Right. Absolutely.
So is there any legislation this year? Let's talk about Wendy's legislation.
My legislation.
Or Representative Hausman's legislation. First of all, let's start. Are there anything, because every year I always get 1 or 2 requests from the cities that I represent to try to either help with some legislation or try to kill some legislation, all kinds of different things. Is there anything for the cities that you represent?
I have not got anything for the cities. No,
nothing this year?
I do not. No. I think some of them that I've got one that I'm going to be putting through government efficiency, and it's like an 800-page bill, but it's to get rid of things that are in statute that we no longer use. And so
imagine that.
I've been working with Senator Coleman. She's been going through some different things and her staff, and so we've kind of got some things that we just don't need that have been outdated, and they don't need to be
800 pages worth of stuff.
It's quite a bit, because whenever I saw the stack on my desk, I'm like, "There's the bill, isn't it?" Because she warned me. I called her and we talked, and I looked through it, and I'm going to read this bill because I know that people are going to ask me, have I read the bill? But the majority of things that are on there is just things that have completely, like in 2014, they're outdated. And so they just need to be cleaned up. And so this is kind of a cleanup bill. So I'm kind of looking forward to doing that, because I think we need more of that in government.
That's actually very interesting that we would have so many things in our statutes and in on our books, quote, on our books, that just don't apply anymore. I mean, with our money and, being, sorry, I didn't know that you're off budget, but, when I was on budget myself for 4 years, to ask for money from somewhere, you had to pull it from somewhere else. A take and a give, or a give and a take. Why we don't do that with legislation is...
And I see that now, too, in some of this, working with different pieces of legislation, where we've taken money from whenever we have designated coffers for certain things, and then somebody comes and says, well, we're not really using it, let's take it from there, when that was the intent, to use that money for a specific reason. Yeah. And so I think we do need to go back, and we need to look at these and say, okay, if we're not using this money, why do we have it, still there and allocated for something? So there's a lot of that I do think we need to start going back and looking at.
Absolutely.
And being audited a little bit more. I'd love to see like a third party auditing.
Audit?
Yeah, to kind of get some of our departments, because you do that in business, that as a business owner. We need to do a little bit more of that with government.
So I've often said we need to have audits of our books for these departments, which I don't think. We have a state auditor, but that's not necessarily their job.
Goes out and does it for other companies or other, in the state, within the state, but not our own.
Other cities, other jurisdictions.
And you really shouldn't do your own. You should have outside
a third party,
right?
And I believe a third party independent audit would be great for our state.
Wonderful,
a great way to start off. I mean, look, we're heading into, and since you're a budget guru, we're heading into a time where the state, and I have to preface this before I go too far into this. I know we're talking about tax cuts, but there's certain taxes are allotted for certain things. General revenue is allotted for certain things. Other monies come from the federal government that are allotted for certain things. And then we have designated taxes, such as like the gas tax that goes strictly to Missouri Department of Revenue, and that's not shared with anybody else in the state.
Correct.
So there's money coming from different places that go certain places. So having said that, and the fact that we're trying to cut taxes on the back end, we need to clean our tax rolls up.
We have it is time.
Yeah, we have that we slate for every year that those jobs are never filled, but that money still comes out of the budget. So, it could be an extra $1 billion showing on the books. That we're not even, it's there and it's appropriated, but it just sits there.
Yeah. And nobody wants to give up their money in their departments.
I know,
no one's going to voluntarily go, hey, we've got this extra money sitting around. We'd like you to take it back. They always want more.
Well, I've been appropriating for 1,000 employees and I only have 500 actual hires, and I've only had 500 actual hires for 5 years.
Right.
There's 500 jobs worth of money sitting out there that's been appropriated year after year after year.
Absolutely.
And it looks bad. I mean, my business or the business that you used to own, would you operate a business that way?
No. I always had an auditor check everything.
Yeah. So we're just, you got watchdogs like Wendy and myself that come up here and you hear us gripe about taxes. You hear us gripe about government efficiency. There's a reason for that. We want the people of Missouri to have the best form of government they can have. While at the same time, we want to pay our employees well.
Absolutely.
We want to make sure that our services that we do have are properly funded.
Well, the people that need them get them.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if we don't have enough money, then some people that actually need these services, they're going to get cut. And I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a hard decision every year.
Yeah.
I mean, this year we're tightening our belts. I know in two of the House appropriation bills, we're looking at cutting $2 billion out of those, which, hey, I'm all for. But the cuts are going to have to come somewhere. And that just could mean not growing. Not getting extra funding. We're kind of leaving it up to the department heads to figure out, okay, you make up the decision. Yeah. You make the decisions on where you want to cut or where you want to tighten your belt before we have to get it.
Right. And that's what I did when I was the chair of the sub-appropriations committee, because I was like, you guys know better than I do. And I can cut, but you all know where, it's not going to hurt us back.
You know where the money's headed.
Yeah.
You know where the dead bodies are.
If you're willing to work with us, we can work with you. And so we want to make sure that we're taking care of the people that need to be taken care of.
All right. Well, so now we went through that whole rigmarole. Is there anything that Wendy is doing or that Representative Hausman is doing is to help any constituents?
Oh, well, I've got a bill that is, there was a little boy that was killed in my district, on a motorcycle. He was riding on the front of a motorcycle with, someone and ran into a telephone pole and, terribly lost his life. And so, yes. And so we've got a bill called Calvin's Law, because the little boy's name is Calvin. And that's going to, we're pushing that to try to get that through, transportation committee. And we've got a couple, because I don't ride a motorcycle. I didn't think it was appropriate for me to be the head carrier of this bill. So I asked a couple gentlemen, one who is, in our area, Scott Miller.
Oh yeah.
He is, a motorcycle, rider. And so him and, Representative, Bill Lucas, who's also a avid, motorcycle, advocate and a rider. And so they are both going to kind of head up that bill and, try to prevent children from riding on motorcycles at a young age, on the highway. Now we know that, out in the rural area, we don't want to dictate on that, but on the highway, I mean, we gotta make rules and protect children, because children have to be in, a car seat in a car, but yet there's no regulations for motorcycles. And so we're just kind of making people aware of this to make sure that little ones are protected, and we don't put them on motorcycles on the highway. It's just not really smart.
Yeah, no, this the story you're talking about was a tragedy. It didn't happen all that long ago, actually.
It was last year.
So, well, that's interesting. It's Calvin's Law?
Calvin's Law.
All right. Has it made it into a committee yet?
Not yet, but we're working on it. We're talking to the speaker, and so I think it's going to head that way. Hopefully next week. We'll see.
So for those of you out there at home or listening to the radio show, I'm not going to go through the educational process of how to create a bill and make a bill and get it through committee. But getting your bill into committee sometimes could be a hard job. And once it's there, then you got to convince the committee members to vote for it. I think this is a good bill. I think it'll make somewhere this year.
Yeah, and you know, whenever we decided to write this bill, we had some help with the Highway Patrol, and we also had said, you know, we're not married to this bill, and so if we think that if someone out there, you know, just like, well, we don't like this bill, I am willing to work with anybody to make it a better bill.
Sure.
And I think that is the best way to take care of a bill is let's start with something, but then let's let it evolve into something better.
Kind of the way things work up here. All right. So we're going to go off to break here in a few minutes. Is there anything else legislation wise that you'd like to talk about real quick before we go on break?
I can't think of anything right now. You always put me on that.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So we'll, I don't know. Have you, just real quick, I'm running an Ibogaine bill this year. Have you heard much about Ibogaine?
No.
So, just in 45 seconds here, I'll just tell you it's a Schedule 3, drug that's, made from a bark of a tree in Africa. And we give it to folks that, well, we don't give it. It's actually a treatment. It's a therapy that you give to, folks that have PTSD and opiate addictions.
Yes,
so we're going to be using that for our, first responders and our, veterans. So we're going to run that bill this year. We're
getting so much more information on things like that.
The other states that are doing it, they gather data and information, and now that the more data, and that's what our bill is going to do, is create a data repository so that we study this and further the education, and more people can be treated by it. Because right now we have to send the majority of people out of country to get this.
Wow, that's amazing. I think with even with President Trump, how he changed marijuana, what the schedule is of that. I think there's a lot of things that we are going to start using in the medical industry that we haven't used, but now we're starting to think, let's try this out.
Right to try.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, we're at the end of our second segment here. We're going to go off to a break. When we come back, we'll finish up with talking about some major issues in St. Charles County and what Wendy and I are trying to do to correct those issues, and we will be back shortly. Thank you. All right. Welcome back to St. Charles Patriot Radio. I am your host, Missouri State Representative Richard West, District 102. So for those of you that don't know, I'll tell you that I represent from Highway 40 south, pretty much to the county line, which is just north of the Missouri River there, all the way out to just south of this, almost the southern city limits of Wentzville, out to Forestell, and then back around down Highway T to end up at the Warren County line there.
I think you and I have the most beautiful districts.
You've got the north, I got the south. We've got a lot of land in both.
We do.
And everybody else has everything squished in between. So, I often call my district God's country. I guess you do too. But I do say, I boast the wine country. I would say you probably boast the farming and boating country.
Yeah,
there's a lot along the river. Yes. Folks that, if you ever go up, I was going to say, if you ever go up along the river there's a lot of places where people have boats. I guess you call them marinas, maybe. They do have a name. So there's marinas up there. There's just a lot up there. And you talked earlier about the duck blinds. If you're not a duck hunter, which I'm not a duck hunter, but I've been duck hunting, which I
have not yet, but they keep telling me they're going to take me.
It's cold.
That's what I hear.
It's really cold, but it's a lot of fun. And if you like to hunt, and I ate everything I shot. So
did you?
I did. Wild, fresh duck is really good.
I have never had duck, so
duck breast is really good. So St. Charles has a lot to offer. Really. And then our entertainment district down through St. Charles City and spreading a little bit out west there. We've got some really good places to eat. We've got some really good history. The street in St. Charles is just full of history.
I love walking down there, especially during the holidays, but anytime. It is just so fun. And there's so many places to eat.
Representative Wilson on with me last week, and of course, he's Mr. Downtown St. Charles.
He is.
A bow tie and all, right? But no, we have a beautiful, beautiful county, and other counties in the state can boast that as well and be proud of it. We just have a whole lot to offer in St. Charles County.
We do.
All right, what we're going to talk about now, Representative, is there's some bills that have been presented by myself this year, and we always have this little bit of tug of war with St. Louis City and St. Louis County.
We do.
Because we're all, I call it the Eastern District, which would encompass Lincoln County, St. Charles County, even though Warren County is a little bit on the outskirts. I'll throw in Warren County because they're starting to get populated there. And then you go down to Jefferson County, Franklin County, St. Louis County, and St. Louis City. I'm probably missing somebody in there, so don't get offended if I did. But really, these are the powerhouses on the eastern side of the state. I think
you're right, yeah.
And we have, at our disposal, we have the airport, we have the East-West Gateway, which is, for those of you out there in general public land, East-West Gateway is a group that helps build our greeneries, our gateways to the west, our streets. A lot of this, it's a funding group. It's a funding mechanism, but it's a group of folks that help determine how we expand westward. If I could I probably stated it all wrong, but that's my interpretation.
Yeah, I would agree.
So as a mayor, when I was a mayor, there were projects we tried to do. We'd have to go in front of East-West Gateway, and then they would grade you on a scale, and then your project would come in certain areas, and they would decipher the funding that you would get towards that, and then your city would match. Being on a mayor, you kind of learn these things, and it's like, what a headache. But it's a necessary thing of what we do as organized government, right? Whether you like it or not, it's one of those things. That group is not really represented well by St. Charles County, not really represented well. I don't think it's represented at all by Franklin County and or Lincoln County. So what this piece of legislation would kind of divvy up those seats, those committee seats, chair seats on there, and give us a little bit more representation at the table.
Right. Well, as we've grown, we have to, change the way that we started out doing things.
Yeah. Well, back when a lot of these committees were formed, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the airport expansion or the airport in a little bit, but 30, 40 years ago, when St. Charles had 100,000 people, we didn't have the representation, and nor should we have,
because we were so
had more representation than St. Louis City or St. Louis County. But now things have changed. We now have in St. Charles County, we have more population than St. Louis City. So our representation the majority of it should no longer come from the city. Now the county's a different animal because, I think we're still 900,000 in St. Louis County. Okay. So the majority of the representation should come from there. I agree with that. But, maybe the second place should be St. Charles County now instead of St. Louis City. Yeah. And it's not to downgrade St. Louis City.
Not at all. No.
But you are representative of the constituents or the people that you hold within. Sort of like what we do as a legislative body, right? St. Charles gained the last census. We gained an extra representative for St. Charles County because we grew so much.
I think that makes sense. It's representing the people that.
Well, so like I said, one of those things. One of those bills, let's see, I'm going to look at the list here. So I have a bill, it's 2330, which modifies the provisions relating to annexation.
Yes.
Okay.
And I just co-sponsored it.
Yeah. So. And basically what that bill is, so currently for a city to annex unincorporated a portion of the county, to annex that in, it has to be 15% contiguous. I want to change that to 35% contiguous because I believe if I'm a city and I want to annex you in, I should touch you more than
that does make sense, doesn't it?
Yeah,
common sense, logic here.
At one point, we had cities that were buying up right away along the road so that they could, in the future, force people to annex into their cities because, now you touch the roadway. And we bought that, the right of way. So, and what this does is this keeps from overexpansion without the representation for the people that live in those areas. Right. So like St. Charles County currently has a 5-acre minimum. And I know they'll work with people, and I'm not going to speak for the county, but they've been allowing 3-acre minimums, to build and not subdivide down into smaller lots. So if I developer and I don't like the fact that I have to stay within 3-acre minimums, I just go to the closest city and say, well, we're going to bring a whole bunch of tax money in if you will zone these down.
Right.
And I'm a big proponent of property rights, but if I buy a piece of property next to an area that I know is zoned for 3-acre lots or 5-acre lots,
you expect
and I expend a lot of money to do that, that's my part of my property right is I bought there for that reason.
With the
I would expect expectation that it's going to remain that. And the person that actually has that land and they're trying to sell it to a developer should realize that that land was zoned that and not expect for that to be sold at a price where, the lots are going to be smaller. I don't want to get too much in the weeds on that. So one of my bills this year is that, and you being the chairperson,
yes,
I've been pushing to try to get some things through your committee. Let's see here. Another issue is our airport.
Airport's been a big topic for us in St. Charles County.
Yeah. So we in St. Charles County, not just the legislative body and not just the legislative body of St. Charles County government, but the citizens as well. Mm-hmm. If you've traveled through Lambert Airport recently, it's been a mess. I mean,
they're working to make it better, but it's just not enough.
I would like to say that, but
I know
I'm through there every other week, it seems like.
Yeah.
And I just don't see, they finally are cleaning it up a little bit.
Yeah.
But you can't put lipstick on a pig and expect it to turn into, the Princess Bride. So.
Well, it's funny when you travel across the country and you see what others have. And here we are in the center of the country. That airport, it used to be a shining glory in St. Louis. And now it's not. And it could be so much more.
So one of the bills that I have says when an airport makes money, and our airport, believe it or not, our airport makes money. But since it's under the control of the city, the funding that it makes actually goes back to St. Louis City.
Yeah, it's kind of like what I was talking about, where funds intended for one thing get pulled out to do other things that.
So there's a federal law out there floating around somewhere that says, hey, when an airport makes money, that money has to be spent back into the airport.
Except
go figure they found a loophole,
yes.
Back in the 70s for some development and to try to entice the expansion of the runway and just a horde of different things. We had an exception. We had a state law that the federal government allowed that exception. Mm-hmm. So all we're asking for is just to repeal that. Yeah.
Where it was.
Like the reason it was done is done and over with.
Yes.
Let's go back and do what the rest of the world has to do and say.
So that it could be what it could be, what we need it to be. In this
we're talking over $6 million a year.
Absolutely.
It's siphoned off from the Lambert Airport, and is the city, it ends up in the black hole known as St. Louis City. Look, I have a love for the city. I grew up there. I still have ties there. I hate to give them a black eye all the time, but it just seems like they don't want to work. And anytime you try to work with them, they come at you and say, well, you folks out there, there's a lot of us folks out there that started there. We'd like to get back to an amicable relationship for everybody in the metropolitan area. So yeah, that was pretty much the bills dealing with the airport that I wanted to address. But there's also, I believe the airport has a commission. Was that the airport? Let's see, maybe that was on something else. So yeah, I think that was the extent of that. Let's see here. Annexation. All right. I don't want to spend too much longer on that. We've only got a few minutes left. Representative Hausman, let's look at moving forward. Good things happen in St. Charles County, real quick.
Good things
happen in St. Charles County.
Well, I'm doing an event this weekend with Senator Schroer. He's having an event, so we're looking forward to doing that. And I've got an event at Lindenwood with some women, and to kind of encourage other women to go out and campaign and get involved in government.
So taking on more leadership roles within.
Yes, because we haven't had a lot of women, honestly, in leadership here in this building. And it's great to see Catherine Hanaway back, first woman speaker, and now she's the Attorney General. We've gotten some women are starting to come about, but we need to encourage women to run and become elected officials.
Ladies like yourself getting involved with, I think you said it was at Lindenwood?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lindenwood.
So what a great place to have it, first of all. And in an educational facility. So you're going to, I guess, talk to them and encourage them and teach them how to, running for office is no light task to begin with.
Well, I think a lot of women sometimes don't realize what it takes and they're intimidated. And they think, oh, I'm not qualified. That's the biggest thing that women say is I'm not qualified. So I think encouraging women, hey, the men aren't either. There's no really qualifying job. You have to have a college, or no, you don't even have to be, you have to be 25, I believe, to do this job. And there's many other jobs out there, that aldermen, those are important jobs.
Well, we've got
city
school
planner,
district,
school board.
We've got all these
There's so many things that you can get involved in. And, just to start the process.
Yeah. So it's interesting. My daughter is taking a class for advanced. She wants to be a city manager, believe it or
I
not.
love it.
And you don't see a lot of female
No.
city managers. So,
We don't have any.
I know.
And I'm thinking in St. Charles. Yeah.
So, I'll say this, just the decision to get involved in
Absolutely.
politics and city government and state government. And there's other political subdivisions that get involved in their school districts. There's water districts. There's ambulance districts.
Well, and
there's fire districts.
Women are really good at organizing. We're really good at that. And we can organize. And
some are.
So I think if more women just realize, hey, you know more than what you think, I think that more women would get involved.
Well, encouragement from ladies like yourself is what they need. All right, folks, we are at the end of our show already. I want to thank Representative Wendy Hausman for spending 45 minutes with me today and educating the listeners of St. Charles County about what it is she does up here and what her goals are for the futures. Thank you all. We'll see you again next week.